Welcome back to Big Gay Church, everyone. I've missed you all so much, and I'm happy to be with you again, no matter what form that must take. Welcome to today's sermon, Losting and Founding, Queer Love Stories and Exhortations in a Time of Pandemic. Thank you for joining us. My queer stories of the past year are queer love stories. I've had the real and precious gift of a sabbatical this academic year. I feel undeserving and guilty while also recognizing this profound privilege, even under these conditions. This is certainly not the sabbatical I would choose, but it's still a gift. And instead of reeling in regret, I reframe it continually to capitalize on the affordances and not focus on the constraints. Or, as Sydney Walker might encourage me, to use the constraints to push me creatively. Instead of focusing on the academic deliverables I proposed for my sabbatical pre-pandemic, I pivoted to focusing on process, principles, and creative production. I prioritized people, connection and collaboration, gifts of service and support. I wondered what I could do temporarily outside of the traditional institutional constraints around research, teaching, and service, as well as things like standard academic publications and the need for individual credit and ownership. In response, I begin here by including some verses selected by my doctoral advisee, Alexander Pittman. Romans 12, 6-8. We have different gifts according to the grace given to each of us. If your gift is prophesying, then prophesy in accordance with your faith. If it is serving, then serve. If it is teaching, then teach. If it is to encourage, then give encouragement. If it is giving, then give generously. If it is to lead, do it diligently. If it's to show mercy, do it cheerfully. Spurred by my sabbatical shifting and catalyzed by the COVID-19 pandemic, this year queerly prompted reflection about my gifts, my opportunities, and my responsibilities. Perhaps something in the sermon will resonate, catching fire with you. Lost. This pandemic is the queerest thing many of us have ever encountered, a gigantic force that's disrupted our lives in so many ways, cost us so dearly. We've lost so much in addition to the many lives. Consistency, stability, and connection. We've lost so much physically, emotionally, financially, spiritually. For some, entire lives are in limbo. For others, particularly women, demands have increased exponentially, unsustainably. We've lost a lot of time with family and friends, colleagues and students. I haven't seen my mother in over a year, twice as long as ever before. Sometimes I can't even call home out of concern. I can't contain all my excess emotion. When I imagine seeing my mother again, I imagine sobbing uncontrollably, collapsing into her arms, melting. A pietà. Found. While reviewing for a research journal, I read a manuscript filled with stories usually untold. Stories from the perspective of a Black, gay male art educator who lived on the down low in New York during the previous pandemic of the AIDS crisis. Too many stories crammed into the one manuscript created problems. I wanted to hear them all, but not all at once. I knew the manuscript would require more than the one permissible round of revisions before a hard decision for or against publication. Regardless of the detail or amount of feedback I provided, I knew, no matter how well-intentioned, no matter how inadvertent, I would be executing institutional white supremacy, excluding the very stories I wanted from the very journals I read. Instead, I contacted the editor and asked about working with the author. The author, Alfonso Grant, agreed, and we embarked immediately, like lesbians, on a whirlwind queer academic love affair hell-bent on telling his stories and securing his tenure. We were queerly on our way. Found. In preparing for a summer class, I found it included an article by art educator Brooke Hofsess. I liked it so much I contacted her to tell her and asked which of her other publications she recommended. Her book, Unfolding Afterglow, Letters and Conversations on Teacher Renewal, is by far the most beautiful, artistic piece of academic writing I've ever read. So I brazenly told her that too. For me, it was love at first sight, queerly. We both reached out in a spirit of hope and openness, what we've called hopenness, falling into a scholartistic wild correspondence of playing attention, making art and meaning together with anything, with everything, in a creative explosion. We explored losting and founding, went wandering around, haikuing, constellationing, and visualizing, breathing, waiting, watching, searching for synchronicities, sensing and sounding for signs of the divine. This plot twist was unexpected, and the results amazing. This was queerly a miracle. Lost and found. In September, we lost our dear friend, colleague, and ally, Melanie Buffington. Patty Bodie and I then co-taught her research class, contacting our network of beloved art education researchers as guest speakers and to provide support. Our pandemic reconnection resulted in Heart and Parcel 1. I invited our guest speakers and support team to contribute 25 copies, versions, or prints of original artwork for sorting and redistributing in a commemorative communal sets. Heart and Parcel offers a potential template for future projects with queer room for variation. Lost again. Alfonso and I were revising a second manuscript when he died unexpectedly from a heart attack between Thanksgiving and Christmas. White supremacy and racism clearly created barriers and obstacles for him, contributed to his stress, and negatively impacted his health. We are living in and party to creating and sustaining the racist, sexist, homophobic, ableist, xenophobic, exclusionary, and oppressive institutional and cultural contexts that damage so many of us, literally and physically. Alfonso's loss resurfaces unexpectedly, losing my first full doctoral advisee, Iyada, in the middle of her program. We needed these scholars. We need them, their voices, their stories. I couldn't help tell Iyada's stories then, but I hope to honor Alfonso by posthumously helping publish at least a few more of his now. They queerly need to be told. Found again. In our large department, we now have a small cohort of Black doctoral students we heavily recruited as an equity and diversity initiative, immediately committing the common error of failing to complete follow-up investments in infrastructure and programs for their support, retention, and success. Attempts through official institutional channels met resistance and stalled, seemingly forsaken, forgotten. The institution doesn't respond adequately to their needs. Instead, we clearly need to do it ourselves. So we do. We call, we text, we Zoom, we socially distance socialize. We discuss their academic, scholarly, and life experiences, their needs, and their interests. More importantly, we are building a beloved community where they matter, where I listen, where their success is our collective goal. I help them choose classes, committee members, and opportunities. One of my concrete goals is having each of these students published before graduation. With Christian Hines' recent publication, Cosplaying While Black, The Transgressive Pleasure of Blacktivism, in the most recent Journal of Cultural Research in Art Education, we're over a third of the way there. It's queerly working. Exhortations. lost, found, lost and found? How do we face hard times without becoming hardened? How do we keep reaching out in a time of holding back? How do we find connection in a time of isolation? How do we keep finding hope in a time of despair? Using the Book of Lamentations as an inspiration, I share these rough beginnings of the Book of Exhortations, an offering of counterpoints and encouragement, recognizing queer perspectives, honoring the queerness in all of us, the undefined, the unsayable, the fluid, the unknown, the different. These are queer times. We are queer people, all of us. We are queerly a community. Exhortation 1. Cultivate openness. Greet the present with the promise of possibilities. Reach out to others. Become vulnerable. Take chances. Experiment. Now is the time we have. We can see good, beautiful things in people. We are shining souls, surrounded in a sea of sparkling miracles. Exhortation 2. Make meaning. Create. Commune with materials. Find unexpected opportunities. Use unconventional media in untraditional ways. Continue to engage. Do something. Then do something else. Then do another something. Keep making. Meaning will come. You will make it. We will make it together. Exhortation 3. Explore different possibilities. We are active agents. We can recognize our power and use it for good. We can question its operations. We can disrupt the systems in which we find ourselves. We can resist oppressive expectations and limitations, bureaucratic tendencies, and inertia. We can do and make different things, and we can do and make things different, better. We can keep experimenting, attempting, improving. We can rewrite the rules, erase them, rewrite our stories, revise ourselves constantly, always becoming. Exhortation 4. Connect and collaborate. Openness is a key component of connection, of community, of creativity, and change. We are meant to live in fellowship, communion. We are social and networked, but not bound to traditional identity constructs. We need one another, but not the limitations of narrow labels and oppressive positionality. We can recognize the divine drive to make, nurture, and sustain connections, to establish relationships that allow and encourage us to work together, to operate collectively, to succeed en masse. Exhortation 5. Play attention. We have unlimited opportunities to engage with our contexts, with the materials, the relationships, the ideas, and actions that fill our lives. Mostly we passively float through without noticing so much of what surrounds us, literally and metaphorically. When we start paying attention, we change our relationship to ourselves. We energize our encounters, engagements, and actions, imbuing them with potential, enjoying their affordances, living more vividly. When we play attention, we seek the songs in the storms. We find the hidden paths into the forest. We feel the breeze moving the fabric to dance. When we play attention, we become aware, attuned, active. We become achingly alive. Exhortation 6. Give. We all have gifts. We carry them even in the darkest, most stressful times and circumstances. Being educators requires faith in this. We can identify our gifts, using them for the greater collective good. Giving forms a framework for new models of interacting, more collaborative than transactional, more karma than capitalist, more reciprocal, more humane, more meaningful. Giving becomes its own currency, its own reward. Giving without need or expectation of return can activate a state of divine grace, evoking forces of goodness, wielding its own warmth and light. Exhortation 7, celebrate love. The greatest gift, the greatest commandment, the greatest reward is love. Faith, hope, perseverance, love. These are parts of us. We are stories, bumbling, fluid collections of shifting facts and feelings, memories and movement, plans and happenstance, outcomes and possibilities. We write ourselves, rewrite ourselves, revise ourselves, but regardless of the characters, the setting, the plot, these are all love stories. We are all love stories. Queer love stories, yes, but love stories nonetheless. Come, let's find ways to know these things, to do these things together. Let's love even in the face of loss. Let's continue to connect, to be in community, to be beloved. Let us love despite the distances, despite the obstacles. Let our stories be love stories, our language be poetry, our words become songs. We can read them together, singing them chorally, our voices loud and echoing. Ours is a story of connection and joy, wonder and abundance, magic and miracles, if we're paying attention. Thank you.